everyone, Jeff and Jay here with Jaysbigadventure. Jay's the fuzzy one. We have a new toy, and you know what that means? A whole bunch more videos for your enjoyment. If you haven't seen any of our videos before, we do modification, upgrade, and maintenance videos for all kinds of stuff, including the 2003 M3 convertible, our 2012 BMW K1600 GT that we went coast to coast on 2 years ago. If you haven't followed us, do so. Go to Instagram, look for Jaysbigadventure, and you get videos and pictures from all across the country. The newest addition is this little Nissan Frontier. It's a 2004. It's got 79,000 miles on it, and it is a manual transmission. That is getting hard to find. It did come in at work. I work for Salt Lake Imports here in Salt Lake City, and guy traded it in and has some relatively minor issues, and one major one, that being the supercharger does not work. It spins, but it doesn't produce any boost. So we're going to have to look into that. Doesn't have much heat, but we are really excited about getting this little truck. We stole it, and Jay is all about starting work on the supercharger to see if we can figure out what's wrong and make it produce boost again. So we are ready with some basic hand tools. Got a nice selection of sockets. Always remember your eye protection, a couple rags, and some extensions. First step is we're going to remove the supercharger cover for the pulley. Normally we would have a belt that goes over the supercharger here, comes down over this belt, down around the crank pulley, up over the AC compressor, and then back up to the supercharger, but that has already been removed, or it broke. It was gone when I got the truck. Normally to release the tension on that belt, what you would do is loosen this nut on this pulley, and then there's an adjusting screw back here, and it's going to be kind of hard to see because it's right behind this harness. It's right here. And that slides this entire pulley up and down in a groove. There's a groove behind the pulley here, and that screw lets that whole assembly go up and down, and that's where your belt tension comes from. So you would lift that up, take the belt off, and go from there. We don't have to do that. Now what we're going to do is drain the supercharger oil, and to do that we're going to take the drain plug out, or the fill plug out rather, and see if we can get some of that fluid out before we take this cover off, because the problem number one is this bearing is noisy, and that whole assembly has to come off so we can get that out. So it turns out the fill plug is a T30. Just fits right in there. After a closer inspection, I think this is going to be a mess. Here's our fill plug for the supercharger. I don't see a drain plug. I think this is an Eaton M62 supercharger. The M90s are the ones that find it, all the GM 3.8 supercharged V6 and stuff. And those have a fill plug where you can get a hose in to suck some of the fluid out. I'm going to try it in here and hope for the best. If you don't have one of these, this is a little magnetic tray, great for hanging on to bolts so you don't drop them down into God knows where. And these are just a couple of dollars at Harbor Freight or whatever, but a great thing to have. And hopefully it'll keep all of our screws in the same place. I'm going to have to do a little more digging, but typically a fill plug should be full of oil up to that fill plug. That's why it's there. That's how you fill it. You fill it till it runs out. I cannot see any oil in the supercharger, which could explain why the nose bearing failed in the first place. Alright, so I'm ready to take the rest of these bolts out here and pull this housing out. I'm afraid I'm going to have a mess. So I've got a whole bunch of paper towels and a plastic bag, and we're going to try to keep it from running down all over the front of the motor, but my guess is this next part's not going to be pretty. So as I was taking the bolts off the supercharger housing, I pulled one out from the bottom and it pulled out of the end of my socket and it fell into this rag right here. And if it falls down into that lower compartment, who knows where it's going to go. So I was very glad I had that rag here. Luckily, Jay is here to save the day with his magnetic retrieval tool. And we're just going to catch that before it falls down into the depths of the engine. Thanks, Jay. And yes, it did make a huge mess. I've cleaned up as much as I can. I'm going to get a little bit of a brake cleaner and spray some of the rest of that, try to get it down out of the places where it's going to get hot and smell, but at least we got the nose off. So we have the supercharger snout off, and have to pull this little cap out of here and then get this pulley off of here, and then the bearing, there's a bearing here and a bearing in the back. We're going to push the shaft that direction and it'll come out the back side. This could be entertaining trying to get this off of here without any leverage, but I've got a couple of wrenches that might be able to hold that in place to get that nut off there. We'll go to the next step. So I've got my puller on here, and I just used this little torch from the kitchen. Of course, my big torch is out of fuel, but use that just to heat this up. It's about 120 degrees, 130 degrees. It's 45 degrees outside, so I'm hoping that little bit of temperature difference will make this come off more easily. So the little kitchen torch did not have enough BTUs, so went to the hardware store and got a real torch, and now we'll try that again. So one of the things that we've learned today is that when they said you needed a press to get this pulley off of here, they were not kidding. On some of the older styles, this was actually a nut that would come off, and it was a lot easier to deal with. This is a press fit. And so I heated the pulley up, hoping that that would expand a little bit, help me get it off the shaft. And then when I put the puller on it, I just bent the snot out of the edge of that pulley. It is really banged up, so that's not going to work. I could not get the pulley off. I'm going to have to take it to a shop and pay somebody to do it. The good news is these pulleys are all the same money. So this is a 2.64 inch diameter pulley. I found a 2.4 inch pulley, which is narrower, and it is going to overdrive the supercharger, give me a little bit more boost. We live in Salt Lake City, Utah, about 4,600 feet, and so we've got quite a bit of altitude to overcome, and hopefully by overdriving that guy a little bit, it'll help make a little bit more power and return the performance to the way the truck ran at sea level. More as soon as I get this back from the machine shop. We've got another couple of things to work on here. A couple of reasons why this thing may not be producing boost. One, the belt could have been loose and it just wasn't turning the supercharger when it was under boost. Two, there is a bypass flap back here, and it's hard to tell, but it's this guy right here, and that is a vacuum operated solenoid, and it opens and closes a flap on the back of the supercharger so that when the engine doesn't need boost, it doesn't produce it. If that vacuum pot quits working, then obviously that door doesn't move and then it doesn't produce boost. This is a truck that has not had a lot of maintenance, so another thing we're going to do is replace all the oxygen sensors and just try to get the truck back to a good baseline, put new plugs in it, and then we will see how it runs from there.